Here's how to make simple yet effective foggy environments using Blender. So let's delete the starter content, hit Shift A and make a plane. Down here, just make the size 50. So we've got a nice big plane. There are shortcuts to these views, but I actually like to use the wheel. Maybe that's my architectural background speaking there. And then what we want to do is we want to add a modifier called subdivision surface. Hit simple and set it to something like 7. And then in the drop down, hit apply. And then the reason we've done that is it just adds geometry to the surface. Then what we want to do is we want to move over to our sculpting tab. And then we want to make some hills, some very basic hills like that. Just to give us that little bit of landscape. Let's then go into subtract and just create a little recess for our water. So there's a nice bit of landform there. Jump back to our layout. Let's just turn X-ray off. G for grab and then just hit Z so it's on that plane. I'm just bringing it above the grid just so it's a bit more visible. Let's then go Shift A, plane again. And let's then just roughly line that up. Doesn't have to be too fancy. Just lift that in. Something like that. Maybe just drop it a touch. Okay. This isn't going to be anything too groundbreaking, but it's something to just get the juices flowing, let's say. Right, with the material preview turned on, and by the way, at this point, let's just change our render engine. So there's a little camera button there for render settings. Let's change that to cycles. Let's do our viewport right down to 100. Turn the denoiser on. Our final render can be 1024. Denoiser turned on. Feature set wants to be experimental. And GPU compute. If the GPU compute isn't working for you, make sure you go into Edit, Preferences, System, and go to OpticX or OptiX, whatever, and make sure that you're clicking your graphics card. I've actually got a beast of a graphics card there in a 3090 Ti, so it should give me some good previews. Now, with the flat plane selected, what we want to do is we want to view the material for this. Now, there is an option to go into the shading tab there, but actually to speed yourself up, if you hover top left, you can actually click and drag a new window. You can then change that to, where are we? Our shader editor. So it's just a bit easier having it all in the one place. So let's just move that over. With that selected, hit new. And then in the roughness, we want to change that to 0, see, like so. And then for our displacement, we want to create what's called a Musgrave texture. We pop that into height. You can see that we've got a very basic water. Doesn't have to be too fancy. Let's make transmission 1 as well. So it's got a bit of see-throughness to it. Scale, we want to increase that scale, something like that. And how lovely is that? There are a lot more measures that you can take to make that look even more realistic, but not bad for a very quick. As I say, this is a very quick beginner's lesson. you can actually, FYI, you can actually animate the water by changing it to 4D and using this W setting, but we'll just go back to 3D for now. So there's a very basic water. Then what I'm going to use is the Polygon plugin. Now, I must admit that I am using a few plugins here, or I will be using a few plugins. I will link them below. The first one is the Polygon plugin. And what I want to do is I want to go texture. Where are we? Looking for ground. There we go. And we just want to go for something like, dirty rock. That'll do. And then with the ground selected, we then hit apply. Go to our node setup here and just increase the scale number so it decreases the size of the texture. I'm just tempted. I'll leave this in. Hit / to isolate. Hide the water. Jump back into sculpting. Just got a little carried away, really. What I want to do is, let's go for... Oh, I didn't have the... let's jump back to here. Just type in sub, simple, 7, apply. Back to our sculpting. And let's actually, rather than the full horseshoe, let's just do one area like that. That's a bit better. Change it to subtract for the water. There we go. So let's go back to layout, Alt-H to unhide everything. And then something like that is a little better. Maybe it's a bit exaggerated. Let's just... It takes a bit of getting used to the... Let's just turn the strength down. The sculpting tools, they are good. So that'll do. We just want to create a shot like that. Now let's just apply that texture again. It's remembered the scale. Let's go even bigger with it. That'll be disguised in a moment. Then what we want to do is, see this little cursor icon here? Let's just click that and then pop it there. And what that does is that gives you a place where anything that you create it'll land in that spot. So let's create a camera. By the way, to get this menu up, you just hit N on the side there. Go to View and Camera to View. Let's then jump in the camera by hitting 0 on the number keypad, and then we can now guide the camera whilst being in it. If you want to do a kind of a social media shot, which is always popular, we could do something like that. Then uncheck camera to view, so then when you do move, it jumps out. Okay, so that's our camera set, and then we can now start working to the camera. So let's move on to our next mesh, which is a cube. Let's then set the size to 50 like we did before, but then let's scale it down on the Z axis like so, and then hit Control A to just apply the scale. That's just good practice really in Blender. Let's just scale it out so it covers the box, covers the scene, and actually we want to cover the camera as well. Let's then bring that down. I'll explain what this does in a sec. But if we go into object properties, viewport display, set that to bounds. Okay. Oh. I had the cursor, moving the cursor selected there. Right, okay, so then next plugin to be aware of is something called GeoScatter. It's an absolutely amazing way of scattering very, very realistic vegetation across a surface. So you start by selecting the object you want to scatter across, and then we go down here and we hit open biomes. Absolutely amazing. And I like these forest ones. So let's just hit forest 3. Sometimes you get a warning because it's very, very busy geometry, heavy geometry. So sometimes it'll ask you, do you want to reduce the amount of visible geometry in the scene? It's just taking a little minute, and there we go. There's the warning. So I do hide 90% and hide instances invisible to the camera. So if we then jump in the camera, even though it looks quite bare, it will be showing through in the render. You can also turn off the visibility in the viewport, and it will show through in the render as well. Another one is called Pongo. Let me just show you this one because it's very cheap. It was just $2, little starter pack of vegetation. FYI, there's the GeoScatter one. As I say, I will link that below, and we will just pop a little car into the scene as well. So to access the tree library, we need to just change our outliner for a sec to the asset browser. When you install that plugin, it then adds all these trees to the browser. Let's have a little look. So let's use these here. So that it was snapping to the landform there. Let's just prevent that. Now you can use GeoScatter to scatter these objects, but because we're working to the camera only, we haven't got a lot to deal with. Let's go back to outliner. Let's then eye in some positions. So I'm just in the orthogonal view at the top, and then I'm just using G to distribute them like so. Then if we go on back into the camera, we can then just use G and then select Z, X, and Y. So that's all I'm doing, just G, X, like so, G, Z. You might then do G, Y like that, to move it into the distance. So we've got those 4 trees there. If we then jump up, we can then just use Shift D to start to fill in. Bit more of the camera, and it's nice to have something framing the camera like so. So then let's jump back into it. So we've just got that little bit of framing there. Also to rotate, you just hit R, and then Z to rotate on the Z axis, of course. And then let's scale that up. So it's just a little bit of playing around, but once you get used to the shortcuts, it's actually not too bad. So something like that, that'll do us. Then we want to jump to a website such as Polyhaven. Let's get a nice cloudy sky, pure skies. Where are we? Overcast. Let's download one of these. So that'll do. Let's download that. Jumping back into Blender with our shader editor open, you can change object to world. Additionally, make sure in your add-ons that the node wrangler is enabled. That just makes it gives you more options when you're using these nodes. Let's then drag the color out and search for environment texture. We also then want to hit Control T when we're on that, and that wouldn't be enabled if you didn't have the node wrangler turned on. Let's then look for our environment texture in our downloads, and then let's see our first preview in cycles. Let's turn that cube off for now, and there we go. We've also got the scatter turned off as well for now. And then in strength, you can increase the brightness of the environment. Now, with the cube selected, check this out. Go back to object, new material, delete the principled shader, and then hit Shift A to add, and let's just add a nice simple volume scatter to the volume there. And then that's our fog. So if we go 0.05, you can see, look at that. 0.03 maybe. And you can give it a colour. You don't want to go too mad with the colour. The colour also inverts once it's at a certain strength as well. So we're getting some funky results there. So let's just keep it to keep it to white for now. We can add a dash of colour. 0.03. There we go. So see the way it's inverting the colour that we're applying to it. So that fog effect is just absolutely fantastic. To really get the most from the fog, what I would recommend is you introduce 2 area lights. So add light, area light. And then in our little section down here, the properties section, when you've got a light selected, it gives you the light option. Let's just set that to say 1000, and then we can start to manipulate the color of the scene using this. And what I like to do is, again, I like to just snap to orthogonal views because the rotation is a lot easier. You don't have to use key shortcuts because it's rotating according to the view. So if we then do that, and then let's make the size 10 meters, something like that. Let's just rotate that again. Go back into our camera, make sure it's out of the viewport. And by the way, while we're in camera view, you can just simply hit plus on the number pad as well. And it just gives you a bit of a more zoomed in look. Let's go to render preview. And there we go. So see the way that is really affecting the tone of the scene now. Could even go. So you're getting some really, really interesting results there. If I was spending more time on this, I would add more information into the backdrop. We're still not getting the full effect of the geoscatter here. Until we won't see that until we produce an actual render. But yeah, if I was to spend more time, what I would do, just to give you a little demonstration, hold Shift to just select them, Shift D, just rotate that back into the camera, and just something like that to fill out the backdrop. There's nothing worse for realism than being able to see the horizon. And then one last plugin is the transportation plugin. As I say, it'll be linked below. It's absolutely fantastic. This one isn't cheap, but being for our practice studio RBA, we do our visuals in house, so we've it's more than worth our while. So let's go for a classic car. Pop our cursor there. Let's go HD and add that in. Sometimes it doesn't follow the cursor. Oh, sorry, I should have set it to cursor. Never mind. Let's then get it roughly in place, like so. And then same again, I like to then just use the orthogonal views. You can then rotate and just match the landscape as best you can. Although let's check the camera view. Let's get it a touch closer. Something like that. Let's then go to the side view again. Zoom right in. And obviously then there's a tilt to it like that. It's quite a it's quite a big one. It's probably a bit too exaggerated that, but you get the idea. So that'll do. There's a bit of tolerance with the fact that we've got the vegetation scatter. Let's actually save this. Just blend the landscape. And the reason I was reminded there is just to save it, is just because we want to make editable. There we go. Oh. And then what we want to do is we want to change the materiality of these front lights to be emissive. So we go on materials down here, and then see this little number? That means that this material is used on 4 instances in the model. So we want to actually hit that to make it unique to just these headlights. Then let's go in emission, lift that up, go to like a nice warm color, and let's just do like 20, something like that. Let's go back to the camera view. And you should see, there we go, look at that. Some nice lights there. What I love about Blender as well is the fact that the render preview mode is absolutely amazing. So with the GPU compute as the device, it's just reacting a lot quicker than it would be if it was CPU. So I'm just zooming in here to just check that the glass looks okay, and it does. So then what I want to do is I want to add another area light, and we'll use these to create our light beams. Let's make this, let's go to the light, 0.1, like that. Change the shape to disc, and then I'm just getting it in the right sort of height like that. Is it the right rotation on the Z axis? Yes. Probably could be a bit better there, something like that. Then instead of Shift D, you hit Alt D, and it creates an instance so that when you change one, it changes them all. So let's just do something like that. And then in the front view, just try and get in the habit of using the orthogonal views. It's much more accurate and quicker. Yeah, so something like that. Then same again, let's go for a nice warm color. Let's go for 20 strength, back to camera. Actually, you know what? We don't even need to go to the camera. Let's go here. Let's get the full effect. Now our fog might want to be a bit denser. There we go. Look at that. Look at that effect. And by the way, at this point, you might be thinking, if you're following academia as an architect or a designer, you might be thinking, well, what's the point of this? This is just another method of rendering, really. It's just, for me, I've not long found Blender. I think it's absolutely amazing. And by the way, I'm just reducing the angle of the spread to just make that the light beam a bit more pronounced. For me, I think Blender is right up there as one of the best rendering programs or one of the best tools, full stop. So I'm just creating one of these moody scenes because this is a really fun way of learning Blender. And actually this approach is an alternative to your traditional sunny renders. I think, visuals like this, I think are really interesting, and you can adopt this sort of style in your own projects. What I like to also do is have a contradicting light here in a warm color. Doesn't want to be as powerful, and it's just a nice composition, really, having a cool and a warm light in the scene. So you're just getting a bit of contrast then from the two light sources. This anisotropy or whatever it is, it's just the setting it kind of lends itself more to the light. So the higher the value, the more the fog is focused around light. So generally speaking, 0 covers you. Let's go slightly less dense. We could go back to our world, by the way, and change the strength of the HDRI. So something like that. I think that just, maybe 1.5, just neutralizes the colors a little bit. You could go 0, funny enough, and let the lighting do its thing. And to be honest, now that I've seen that, I'm going to go let's go 0.5. Let's reduce the strength of these lights. They're a little bit in your face. Okay, so nice basic environment, nice water texture, very, very simple one as well. We've learned how to, apply a very basic texture using the polygon plugin, and then we've obviously populated the scene with a tree library and a scattering tool, and we've obviously learned how to add a lovely volumetric environments to the scene and how to light it properly. So the last thing really is to then just go to output. So we've got our output. The resolution is set to it's 1080p, but it's obviously vertical. You can change that to 4K vertical, and then it's a case really. There are more render settings, but then it's a case of just setting your sample count to something reasonable. So the one here where it's just got 100 samples, that's just to give us a quick preview. 1024 is a really good number for high quality stills. And last but not least, in color management, they've got these amazing presets in the look. So you can go punchy, could go very high contrast. You could even set it to grayscale, which is a very interesting look. You could reduce the contrast and so on and so forth. So I like to go for high contrast like that. And it is then as simple as hitting render image. And it renders away using the settings here. You know, it's rendering using the graphics card because we've kind of set that as the device over here. So hope you enjoyed that. Very simple and quick, you know, kind of beginner's lesson in Blender. And creating these sorts of scenes is a really effective way of developing your own skill set and your own familiarity with the whole user interface and all the tools. When you have a crack at these types of shots, you'll start asking more questions, you'll start doing more research around the topic, and your skills will come on quite quickly indeed. And what I would say to you is, in the future, we will have a full course on Blender specifically for archviz, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Thanks for watching, and anything else, drop me an email at adam@archademia.com.